Isaiah Stewart, we all know what he did, man. He signed an extension for $64 million over 4 years. I believe the fourth year is a team option, I believe, right? Or is it a player option?
His $64 million?
Yeah. Isn't there a team option in there?
I could check on. Let me check real quick.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like that's something that Troy Weaver just likes to do is put those team options in there. And for some reason, I can't spell today. I apologize for that. So his new contract spot. Oh, here we go. So he has a club option in 2026.
Okay.
So it's a base $15 million salary, and he'll be a UFA in 2028 when he's 27 years old.
How do you feel about the contract before we can really get into this, before we dive in? Were you for it? Were you against it? What side were you on?
I knew an extension was coming. I know we had touched on it a little bit last week. I didn't know it was going to get done this soon. But I feel like for the market, it's a fair deal. Like Naz Reid got a similar contract to Isaiah Stewart. I know there's going to be some fans in the comment section watching this live or, when this podcast is over, they're going to absolutely hate it. A guy that they just don't really value. And, I'm kind of indifferent. Like, I don't think it really hurts the Pistons long term, but I don't really think that, they had to pay that much. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some other teams that we're going to go after him after after his rookie extension was over. Maybe they were going to pay him. Maybe that's why Troy gave him that deal. I think my only thing is if you knew you were going to pay Isaiah Stewart, like the Marvin Bagley and then the James Wiseman, like there's a lot of money tied up in the front court for me personally. I mean, you got $13 million in Wiseman, $12 million in Bagley, which I think right now that contract actually isn't as bad as, some other contracts in the NBA, but I thought it was a fair deal.
Yeah, it's Marvin Bagley. He's up. His contract comes up after 24-25 will be his last year at 12.5. I really don't think that's terrible because it's only like 8% of the cap. And Isaiah Stewart's contract, I've talked about this before. I thought around $15 million was pretty fair. I think if that three-point shot is legit, that contract, he'd probably be making closer to $20 million a year after this season, because I don't think this extension doesn't kick in until next year anyways. Like he's still on his rookie deal. Mm-hmm. So he's still getting paid a little less than what he should be. But I just think Troy wanted to tie him up, and just in case he took another leap as a player, which he has since his rookie year. The growth has been phenomenal. I don't hate this contract at all, man. I do not hate it. I thought it was fair for Isaiah Stewart. I mean, a guy that averages 11, 8, he can shoot the three ball. It's still a little inconsistent, but it is there. He's definitely shooting it with confidence. He's a versatile defender. I know that there were some people saying like he can only play defense as the 5 and he can't switch on the perimeter, but correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't there some plays out there, some highlights where he was switching out of James Harden, made him uncomfortable? Same thing with Jason Tatum. I believe those are out there. He has great footwork. He's not going to be able to defend those guys all game, and you're not going to ask him to do that. But his skill set defensively is he can switch onto those guys and make them uncomfortable. Like we've seen it. It's there. That's a part of his game. And I really don't hate the contract. And I think Keith Langlis also tweeted out that once the cap goes out, this is going to be less than 10% of the salary cap overall. So it's not as bad of a contract. I think people just see the number and we're getting stuck in the mindset of a few years ago where 16 million or 15 million, whatever it is, was a lot of money. I think it's fair for Isaiah Stewart. I think he's going to take another leap, and, we're going to look at this as a bargain in a couple of seasons.
Yeah, like I kept quiet about it. Like I told you a couple of minutes ago, I'm kind of indifferent on it. Like,
yeah,
I don't really think it was an overpay, but I thought it was just kind of like fair. So many people are like, well, if he doesn't develop a 3-point shot, this contract sucks. Like it's gonna be one of those contracts where you just kind of scratch your head. We talked about Jim Costa last week. He was tweeting about it. I've seen some people on Pistons Twitter, overanalyze it of like, a $15 million a year for a guy that is undersized, can't shoot, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's developed each and every year, and he's put in the work to get better. I'm not going to sit like on that hill and saying he can't shoot, he's a bad defender, he's an undersized center. I think they plan for him to be a power forward. They want him to be a power forward. And I think he can develop that three-point shot where I think he shot 33% last year. If he can get up to 35, 36, I think most fans are maybe okay with that. I don't know. I feel like this fan base is such a tug of war with Isaiah Stewart. There are people that love him. You can't talk anything bad about him, but there's also people that think he's a bum and like, why are we giving a guy this much money? The fan base is really interesting, man. It's like they're not solely just on the Isaiah Stewart hype train. There's a lot of Pistons fans that just think he's a bad player, and I just don't see that. I think he's one of those players he's a culture setter. Like,
Oh yeah.
I think he's one of those glue guys. Like I had mentioned, like he could be our Kevon Looney for the Detroit Pistons. Just one of those hardworking glue guys that is just a good leader and a locker room guy, and just makes everyone on the team just gel and bond together.
It was his first year taking multiple three-pointers per game. His rookie year, he took one. His second year, he took one and rounding up on those. And then this past year, he took 4 per game in 50 games and shot 33% from the three-point line. Like, he's never been asked to do this ever in his career. And his third year in the NBA, at the age of 21, they said, hey, we need you just to let it fly from the perimeter. And I think 33% for a guy that has not lived on the perimeter is pretty damn good. I don't think it's that bad. And you can see the growth that he's made from his rookie year until his third year. And it's going to continue to grow. I mean, I guess I don't know what people want from him, but do you think that's the biggest reason people are disappointed in the contract, is because the three-point shooting isn't where we expect it to be yet?
I think a lot of people project him to be a center, and he's an undersized center. I don't really know, because I feel like each fan has their own gripe with him. I saw a comment, people mentioned the LeBron fight, which I'm like, okay, like what else? You don't like his shooting, you don't like his defense, you don't like that he can't rim protect, you don't like that he's not a bouncy center, he can't catch lobs. Like, I don't know. I feel like each fan has their own gripe with why they don't like Isaiah Stewart, but I see more positives in his game than I do negatives, because I've seen development and I've seen improvement each and every year. That's just me, though. Like, I'm not going to tell fans their opinions are wrong, because I think, they're valid. You can have a debate about that. But
Yeah.
that's just me personally. I don't know about you. I don't know how you feel about I know you've told me you like the contract, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with some of these fans of, he's not a good shooter. He's, an undersized center.
I mean, he's averaged a block per game every year. Last year he was at 0.7, but I think that's because they were asking him to do a little bit more defensively, which he's capable of doing. I've already said that. Like, this is a guy, I think it was his second year in the league I've shared this stat before, and I want to say it was within 6 feet of the basket, where opponents were shooting 10% less than their average field goal percentage when he was defending them. So even if he's not getting 2 blocks per game or rim protecting where we can see it in a stat sheet, he still makes things difficult for people that attack the rim. I mean, he has a huge wingspan. I think it's like 7'3". Like, I mean, if he may be only 6'8", but because of that reach, he's still just a hard guy to get around and a hard guy to make a shot over. And plus, as I already said, his footwork is phenomenal defensively. He can make things uncomfortable. I'm not afraid if the Pistons want to continue to switch everything, if he's out there on the floor. Like, I don't think it's a negative that he has to switch on guys. Like, he makes things uncomfortable. Will he lock them down? No, but nobody's going to lock down a James Harden or a Jason Tatum or some of these other guys that play in the perimeter. That's why they're the best scorers in the world. But if you can make things difficult for him, you're doing your job, and that's what Isaiah Stewart does. I mean, and I'm not calling out every fan. I just think some fans' expectations for players are just through the roof. Like, we want everybody to be an all-star. We want everybody to be an all-NBA player, an all-defensive all defensive player. We want them to be MVP candidates or defensive player of the year candidates. That's not everybody's role in the NBA. You know, I mean, Isaiah Stewart, he's a solid foundation piece. He's going to set the tone during the games, in practice. You know, that's what he does, and there's value in that. And he's a no-nonsense player. Like, he's just because he's not, he doesn't make the flashy plays, but his game is real solid. And I don't know. I don't hate the contract. I didn't think it was that bad.